A retired lawyer. He's been published on The Hill and at YellowhammerNews.com. You've seen him on Newsmax TV, so yeah, he knows something about controversy. It's the Daily Controversy with Christopher Reid.
You're listening to Daily Controversy on WVNN. Today we have Patrick Hedger. He's the Director of Policy at NetChoice. He's been featured on Fox News, Fox and Friends, Fox News at Night. And this is a great day to have you on. I just heard Ben Shapiro's interesting discussion about AI and the future of it. And I guess a lot of people are concerned that it can kill jobs, but isn't the bigger deal that someone's going to corner the market on AI? It's going to be either us or China. So, I mean, isn't the risk of us not embracing AI that we could get, we're basically giving China a foothold in the future of technology?
Yeah, that is a major concern. So what we've seen is that a lot of the proposals that people want to put in place to try and, hedge against some of the existential risks of AI are very similar to the types of regulations that we've seen the Europeans put in place on existing technology, where you insert a tremendous amount of bureaucracy into the innovation and development process. And the result is that the Europeans don't have any sort of technology companies to speak of that's capable of producing the AI systems that can compete with Chinese companies. So we've got a two-horse race. It's either a future of this new technological revolution that's dominated by the United States, like the internet era was, or we cede that future to China, with AI being a far more ubiquitous, more multi-purpose technology than even the internet was.
Yeah, I mean, that's my main concern. I use the AI all the time. I mean, whether it's for work or, just for day-to-day stuff. I mean, it's very useful. I enjoy Grok because Grok tends to be more truth-centered. They try to make it's much more neutral than, say, ChatGPT, which is all these has way too many safety guards. Like, it's just, you don't always get answers that are accurate. So I would rather just pay the extra for Grok, and it's worked very, very well for me. But I do have friends that are very concerned about it. I'm a retired attorney, practiced law for over a decade, was general practice attorney. But some of my friends in that field, they're concerned that you're not really going to need as many attorneys as you normally would, because, I mean, for a lot of things, especially for drafting pretty common documents, AI does a pretty good job, and they have the technology to do that. What would you say to people that are worried about, say, us needing less radiologists or less attorneys in certain fields due to AI being able to, really do those jobs quite more effectively than some of the professionals?
Well, I would say look at those types of careers and those types of markets. Can everyone afford an attorney right now? Can everyone afford healthcare right now? No. And so this is going to dramatically reduce the cost of providing those types of services, which is going to expand demand for those types of services. And people are still going to want a human in the loop. Planes have been able to fly themselves for decades, but I don't think many people would feel comfortable getting on an airplane and not seeing anybody up in the cockpit. So I think AI is going to drive a tremendous amount of more demand for those professional services, and it's going to allow the existing lawyers and radiologists to do more and serve more people, because, again, I think the demand is already out there.
I mean, you make a good point. And sometimes things are about trade-offs, right? It may be that we will need less people in some of these white-collar professional jobs. It'll also make the people that are able to stay in those professions much better. I mean, if anything, it probably will weed out, the bottom, 30, 40% potentially. So you actually will have more qualified attorneys, more qualified physicians. But I guess if politicians are trying to say, well, this will be, everything will work out perfectly, it won't be disruptive, but that's not really true either. I mean, even technology is inherently going to disrupt some things, and we just kind of accept that. We adapt. I guess the good thing here is that it's really those blue collar jobs, the trades. You're going to need even more of those, because you can't really get AI to do that. You can't get AI to, let's say, weld or do plumbing or electrical engineering, things like that, which is one of the biggest issues we have. Is those are jobs predominantly that are taken by younger men there's been a huge amount of younger men not participating in the workforce. Now it seems like you're going to have a lot more opportunity for these jobs that are pretty high paying in the trades. That, so people could get trained in maybe, a year or two, and they'll likely be making more than, say, an attorney that just, graduated from law school. So there will be an increase in certain sectors of the job market, correct? It's just a question of, well, if there are slightly less in the professional field, you might have quite a bit more on those blue collar jobs, right?
Yeah, so all technological revolutions do cause shifts in the labor markets. I mean, that's the entire point of technology, is to try to reduce the amount of labor necessary to do something. But right now, there are more people alive today doing more jobs and more types of jobs with more technology than ever before in human history. All of those things have increased together. And that's going to continue to happen with AI. I mean, it would be very hard to predict the types of jobs that the internet created, for example, in its infancy. I don't think anybody would assume that there would be jobs for things like podcasters out there someday, or some of the other internet-based services that are provided, in the IT field, for example. But you're also correct about a shift happening. And frankly, I think that the K-12 system has not done a great job at allocating our labor market talent. You have a glut sort of being pushed, kids getting pushed into four-year degrees that may not be a good value for them, while there is still tremendous demand for the skilled trades. Whether it's plumbers, carpenters, HVAC technicians, electricians, and demand for those things is also being driven up by AI. So the ability to build and produce data centers, as well as being able to build and produce new manufacturing centers, factories that are AI enabled, that allow us to reduce the cost of manufacturing and therefore increase hiring.
Yeah, and I'm one of those that, I think we got to do this wisely. I think you got to be thoughtful about how you go about it. But at the same time, I mean, this is ultimately going to be a huge potential for growth, and could significantly raise our GDP, our standard of living. All these different things are possible. I mean, you could see cures for cancer that may have taken 20 years. Now they'll take 2 years to come out, because we'll be able to analyze information from every study that was ever done within like a trillionth of a second, which is truly phenomenal. So that's why I'm a little bit nervous. And I think Ben Shapiro said this. There's sort of this populist fervor against AI, and not that people should just embrace something and not ask questions and then not try to be thoughtful. I think that's not the way to go either. But what I wouldn't want to see is for people to say, well, these data centers, a lot of people don't like them. And I believe Trump has tried to address the issue as far as they're raising power rates in the areas they are, so that they could basically produce their own power, put a small power plant next to them, things like that, which could make it where we're not having those secondary costs being passed off on other people, which I think is a good idea. But to the people that are afraid of this and would kind of look at this as a scary future, what would you tell them to kind of allay their fears, like our audience, for example?
Yeah, I'd first tell them that change is scary. And this is not anything that's unique in human history. There have been these types of anxieties and concerns with every major technological revolution. And people, these are valid concerns. People deserve to be heard, and policymakers do need to address those concerns. The good news is that a lot of the things that people are demanding in this space are really already part of law and consumer protections. AI does not exist in a legal vacuum, for example, and there's been writing by scholars and regulators on both sides of the aisle addressing that point, that there's a lot of tools available to regulators and attorneys general to deal with potential harms caused by people using AI. And I would also encourage folks to look at how public utility commissioners how those public utility commissions are structured. It's law in all 50 states already that large loads cannot be passed off onto residential electric consumers. The costs of those new large loads cannot be passed off by the public utility commissioners. So there's already strong protections in place. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the research on what's happening in electricity markets, yes, in places, electricity prices are going up, and going up, quite a lot. But what's happening is that data centers are taking a lot of the blame for other bad policies that have been put on the books for a long time. Forced transitions away from existing coal and natural gas plants, for example. Renewable portfolio standards. These are mandates to buy a certain amount of power from certain sources. Those are the things that the Department of Energy and the Lawrence Berkeley National Labs found are actually increasing electricity prices. What's helping to keep electricity prices stable is actually the data centers themselves, because they absorb a large amount of the fixed costs of the grid.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that we need to, be careful but embrace this. I think that's the best way. We got about a minute left. How can our audience find out more about the work you're doing, Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us at netchoice.org. Follow us on X at NetChoice.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. That was a lot of our audience knows this stuff well. We got a lot of people in NASA and Space Force and everything in the Huntsville area. So I'm sure they really enjoyed that conversation. We really appreciate having you.
I appreciate you having me as well. That was great. Thank you.